Hello, brothers and sisters. Raven here. Today we're going to go through a little bit of an overview of different things from Wisdom's Children. Just a lot of different topics that came up that I want to discuss as I went through the rest of the document. It is going to be a little bit random where this discussion goes because the document is kind of random. There's a lot of paradoxes and issues with the way they are thinking. So you can't expect to really keep it too organized when you've got that kind of thinking, that kind of process in what you're analyzing. But I want to start off with a couple quotes that kind of show you what this is about, what's really going on here, and just how circular, not the reasoning, but the indoctrination is. And that's what the big difference here I want to talk about is. The distinction between education and indoctrination. One thing that's said, this is a very short statement that's made that pretty much clarifies it, that they're going to completely keep you from using logic. It says, "But as we show extensively elsewhere, human reason offers no protection against irrational destruction." Think about that again. Human reason offers no protection against irrational destruction. This statement in and of itself is its own proof. Because they're right. But they're also wrong. Because what this shows is human reasoning isn't reliable. It's not consistent. It doesn't work all the time. Now, if you went by logical reasoning, true reasoning, etc., then you'd have more to work with. If you just say human reasoning, that's what they're using to make this statement, and that in and of itself is creating an oxymoron. This doesn't work, even though it's true, because it proves itself. Because reasoning still helps. Reasoning is the opposite of rationality. So when you're going to say human reasoning offers no protection against irrational destruction, you're kind of contradicting yourself to an extent. If it wasn't for the adding of human reason, because your own statement shows how it doesn't. Now, the way they use this, what this is for, is very twisted. One thing that they use as a sort of title almost for a lot of the people they're teaching, a lot of the kids, etc., is what they called an integrated person. In other words, somebody under mind control. Somebody brainwashed into their society. And they're never going to say that, but that's what that is. And what they say when they're talking about this is this. Whenever we teach anyone anything, we do more than simply teach him about some particular subject. To some extent, we actively shape the whole person. To shape them means they're not just giving them information, not just teaching them things. They're giving them a particular way of looking at those things, a particular way of reasoning through them. After having just shown the uselessness of reason and treating it as though that's the way they have to do it. That's brainwashing. Period. That's what's going on here. And what they do with this is they often, as I've shown in many of the books that Blair wrote, many things that he said, they make things sound more complicated than they are. And by this, they can take very simple, basic, general logic and make it seem like profound wisdom. Even though it's not at all. It's just common sense. But they want it to seem like so much more because then you're going to follow it and you're going to treat it like that is so complicated. There's no way you're going to get much higher. And that's what this whole document ends up being about. This is not teaching how to make them think. As it said, human reason offers no protection. So they're pretty much making you throw out reasoning. Then they tell you you have to shape the whole person with this. It's not just about giving them information. It's not about them thinking through it. It's about you shaping the whole person. You shaping how they think, how they choose, what they do, what they believe, etc., etc., etc. Because they want to get rid of the individual. And then they want the simple things, the basics, to seem extremely profound. So that you're so overcome by them. The complexities you don't really look at because you feel like you can't understand that. That's way above you. It's about nothing but control. That's it. Mind control. That's all this is. And this whole document isn't just trying to control the way you look at it. It's also making it so that you control the way anybody under you looks at it. At one point in this book, it has a section that's called the teaching guidelines. It's got a sort of almost a checklist kind of thing. Now, reading this, I'll admit I was pleasantly surprised. This, though it's not saying much, I'll say this was the best part. This was the part that really had some good features. However, a lot of truth, a lot of good in anything by a cult or a false religion is always there to hide the real lies. And there's primarily two statements I want to look at in this. Both of them because they can sound okay at first, but once you look at them, something's wrong. One of the checkpoints on there says this: expect the best from your children. Those two words put together are the problem. It's kind of good in a sense because you do want to pursue this, but not expect it. That's the problem, that they put expect and best. This isn't about trying to help them grow. This isn't about trying to help them improve, help them seek better. No, this is about expecting it of them. That's what Homestead does even with its members. That's the way they work. Any little imperfection they use as a way to make you feel so ashamed of yourself, to get rid of yourself, to be completely under their control. That's why it says expect, because that expectation is how you fully control them. That mind control. Something that's always very important to learn, that they don't want them to learn an ounce of, is self-control. They want you to have no control of yourself because they want it all. They want that control. Next one they bring up, and this one sounds better at first, and may have a little bit there that's good. But pay close attention. It says this: help your children to participate in their learning so that what you teach them becomes their own. Now, that sounds very good, but do you notice the problem? Let me read it again. Help your children to participate in their learning so that what you teach them becomes their own. So participate in their learning so that what you teach, so nothing of what they learn themselves, only what you teach them becomes their own. So not what is their own, never what is their own, only what you teach, only what they taught you, only what Homestead Heritage is teaching. When I read that, it reminds me of that quote on Blair Adams' tombstone. For those of you who may have forgotten, it said, "We dream because we love, and we love because we are loved. Because we are our Father's children. Children who know no better. Who have chosen to know nothing else." Know no better. They don't want them to learn anything more than what they've been given by Homestead. They don't want them to know any better. They want them to follow their teachings in ignorance. And that's what this entry into this checklist is saying. It's showing exactly how they want them to be brainwashed. It's only what they teach that becomes their own. Everything that is truly their own, they need to ignore. Now, the reason they put this in the way they did, if you didn't notice, is because this is an important part of learning. They need to learn it for themselves. Because real education is something you're learning yourself, not something you're being forced to believe. That's indoctrination. That's what Wisdom's Children is all about. It's not called Wise Children. It's not called Children's Wisdom. It's Wisdom's Children. Because these leaders who wrote this, who created this culture, this community, see themselves as wise. See their own hypocrisy, paradoxical teachings, etc., as wisdom. And they want these children to follow that wisdom by putting trust in the leadership of Homestead Heritage. This whole document was about nothing more than indoctrinating the parents in a way that made sure they would teach that would indoctrinate their children. That's it, all this is. A system of brainwashing. And as we can see from where things are and how long it's been going on, it is sadly a very successful pattern of brainwashing. Nice thing is, some people have gotten out. Some people see the issues, especially some who grew up there, as they started to come to that age where they would think for themselves. They get to make that choice. And some of them choose to think for themselves. Sadly, some don't. Making you put so much faith in them, so much faith in their teaching, in their way of living. So even when all proof necessary is given, you'll ignore it. You'll set it aside and you'll still listen to their teaching because you've been convinced. You learned this yourself. You've been convinced that it is your own and wasn't just something they taught you. So looking at this document really makes me pray for these kids. It really makes me sad that they're stuck in this, and it also makes me sad for the parents. If only more would start to admit they were fooled, they were tricked. They were made to believe something that wasn't true. It's something I had to admit to with a few things back in, almost 8 years now. And it wasn't easy for me. Who knows what it's like for them? I pray they come out of it. I'll see you guys next week. God bless.